Hello and welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Our cover story tonight is about the Russia-Ukraine war. It's about a dangerous turn that the war could be taking. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has issued a new nuclear threat. That's right. The leader has warned that they will use depleted uranium. What does that even mean? How lethal are depleted uranium weapons? And is the war about to get more dangerous? Where are things headed? That's coming up shortly. Also on the show for you tonight, will India buy armed drones from the United States? We tell you what's brewing and what the reports are saying. We also tell you all about India's new anti-submarine warship. China is facing the world's biggest millionaire exodus. We tell you how things reached this point. And we also get you the story of Australia's serial crocodile killer. Our cover story is about the ultimate danger, the Ukraine war going nuclear. Now, this is not an idle threat or bravado by a maverick commander. This actually was a threat that's been made by Vladimir Putin himself. On Tuesday, he issued a clear and unambiguous ultimatum that Russia would use depleted uranium weapons on the battlefield. Why? To avenge the death of one of his top generals. His name was Sergei Goryachev, a major general in the Russian military and the chief of staff of the 35th Combined Arms Army. On Tuesday, he was reportedly killed in a Ukrainian missile strike during Kiev's counter-offensive in the Zaporizhia region, and reports say the strike was carried out using British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles. The 52-year-old general was a highly decorated officer. He fought in the Second Chechen War, commanded a tank brigade, also oversaw a Russian base in Tajikistan, and led Russian forces in Moldova. Now, he was one of the Russian president's best commanders, and his death is a major blow for the Kremlin. You see, Putin will not let this wound to Russia's military ego go unanswered. Now, have a look at this report. On the same day Sergei Goryachev died, the Russian president issued this warning. He said that Moscow could use weapons with depleted uranium in Ukraine. He also issued a direct ultimatum to the West, warning that there could be no end to the war in Ukraine. He said, and I'm quoting from his statement, the United States pretends not to be afraid of an escalation of the conflict in Ukraine. But sane people, they clearly do not want to take this to a third world war. In the event of a third world war, there will be no winners, including America. Now, you see, this marks a big turning point in this war, one that could make it more dangerous. Depleted uranium is a dense byproduct that is left over when uranium is enriched for use in nuclear reactors or nuclear weapons. In fact, it retains some radioactive properties, but cannot generate a nuclear reaction like a nuclear weapon would. But it is still very dangerous. Now, according to experts, depleted uranium mainly emits alpha particle radiation. Alpha particles don't have enough energy to go through one's skin, but if they are ingested or inhaled, they could be a serious health hazard. In fact, it can also be used for tank armor and bullets due to its high intensity, through which it can penetrate enemy armored vehicles. In other words, depleted uranium is mildly radioactive, but the radiation could spread terror, and once it lands on the battlefield, it will invite escalation. And there's no saying what could follow next. Is the general's death the only reason Putin would deploy such a weapon? Well, not really. There are other factors involved as well. It's also because Ukraine is getting them too. Reports say the UK is planning to supply depleted uranium shells to Ukraine's armed forces, and the US also is set to approve depleted uranium tank rounds for Ukraine. So Putin has more than one reason to be the first to use these weapons. And as the stakes increase, so will the costs. The money to fund the deployment of these weapons. Russian coffers are already drained. The war has been underway for a year. To shore up the coffers, Putin has hit oligarchs with $5.3 billion war tax. The proposed levy was outlined in a bill introduced on Tuesday. And under this bill, Russian businesses making profits of over 1 billion rubles a year will have to pay a one-off tax worth up to 10% of their total gains. And through this bill, Moscow plans to raise an estimated 3 billion rubles from its oligarchs. Russian media reports are claiming that the oligarchs themselves came up with the idea. Why did they do this? Because they realized they have made gigantic profits during the course of this war. So it's a win-win deal for both the sides. The Ukraine war, in fact, has already become a testing ground for the most modern and sophisticated weaponry on both sides. And Russia has claimed its first kill by artificial intelligence. You heard that right. Reports say its highly acclaimed S-350 Vityaz air defense system shot down a Ukrainian aircraft while operating in auto mode. This is an extraordinary feat. An aircraft destroying another without any operator intervention. And this marks the first instance where a system operated completely automatically used artificial intelligence for combat. But the question is, will Putin succeed in the larger war in turning the much-hyped Ukraine counteroffensive into minor gains while the world tries anxiously to find a route map towards negotiations that result in a ceasefire, if not in the end of war? The jury is open, but this is clear. This much is clear. Both sides are in a hard slog, and the only thing that is clear at this point is that the price will be paid in blood, not only by generals, but by thousands upon thousands of ordinary soldiers. And our next story comes from India. It is advancing its ties with the United States, expanding them on several fronts: economy, trade, and most importantly, defense. So much so that the US is pushing New Delhi to seal an armed drone agreement. That's right. Have a look at this report. Ahead of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's state visit to the United States, Washington wants New Delhi to cut through its red tape and advance a deal for dozens of US-made armed drones. Now, you see, this is a clear indication of America's keenness to pull India closer. In fact, ever since the date of PM Modi's visit was fixed, the US State Department, the Pentagon, the White House, they have all asked India to show progress on the deal for as many as 30 armable MQ-9B Sea Guardian drones that will be made by the San Diego-based General Atomics defense firm. And reports say this is all part of the US president's strategy. He has made deepening ties with India a cornerstone of his state policy to counter China's growing influence. And there is no country better than India that he can place his bets on. So naturally, he is paying special attention on collaboration between the world's two largest democracies. Collaboration that will cover advanced military technologies, despite the absence of a former of a formal security alliance. America's interest can also be gauged from the kind of officials it is sending to New Delhi. Officials like Jake Sullivan, Joe Biden's national security advisor. He arrived in New Delhi on Tuesday for a 2-day state visit, accompanied by a delegation of senior U.S. government officials and leaders. What was their focus? Preparing for the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming state visit to the United States. In the last 24 hours, Sullivan has met the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and his Indian counterpart, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. And the meetings largely revolved around strengthening India-US defense ties. And I want to focus on the interaction between the NSA Doval and Jake Sullivan. The two attended a roundtable on advancing the India-US Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, or ICET. This initiative was launched by the US President and the Indian Prime Minister. This was on the sidelines of the Quad Summit in May 2022. The goal, you see, was to elevate and expand the Indo-US Strategic Technology Partnership and defense industrial cooperation between the two sides. Businesses and academic institutions of the two countries. Speaking at the conference, Jake Sullivan said that his government is trying to remove barriers of collaboration on both sides vis-a-vis defense trade, investments, and people-to-people partnerships. Listen to this.
As we look ahead to the state visit that Prime Minister Modi will be embarking upon in Washington next week, along with Ajit Doval and a significant delegation from India, a number of the deliverables at that visit are not just bullet points on a page. They are fundamentally designed to remove those obstacles in defense trade, in high-tech trade, in investment in each of our countries, in taking away obstacles that have stood in the way of better collaboration among our scientists and researchers.
And adding to Jake Sullivan's remarks, Ajit Doval said that this platform, the ICET, will drive the India-US relationship forward as it is the most critical element of bilateral ties.
We have established a strategic trade dialogue. It will serve as a platform to address regulatory barriers and issues relating to export control.
Now, for the unversed, the aim of the ICET initiative is to forge better links between India and the US vis-a-vis government interactions, academia, and industry areas like AI, quantum computing, 5G, biotech, space, semiconductors. And this entire initiative is spearheaded by the National Security Council Secretariat in India and is part of the NSA's vision for India-US ties. A vision that is being highly applauded. Just have a look at what the US ambassador had to say about him. Eric Garcetti. He was in attendance at the ICET conference, and addressing the conference, he described Ajit Doval as not only a national treasure, but an international treasure as well. Listen to this.
And Ajit Doval, a village boy from Uttarakhand, who now has not become only a national treasure, but an international treasure, who has had the same vision to come together and say, what can we do to change the course of this century, to quote National Security Advisor Sullivan, to take us forward. We're not just here to do small things. We're here to do big things, do things that change the course of history, and for the United States and India to just maybe be the co-authors of this next phase that the world faces, its challenges, but also its opportunities.
And the NSA's engagements did not end there. Earlier today, he also received a phone call from Ukraine. It was from the head of the Ukrainian president's office, Andrei Yermak. He dialed the NSA Ajit Doval to seek India's backing for the Ukrainian peace formula to resolve the war to the point of at least a ceasefire while talks continue on territorial claims. And all these developments are shining examples of the stellar work that is being done by India's National Security Advisor. For now, all eyes are on the US for the big Modi-Biden meeting. Our next story is about India's new anti-submarine warship. The vessel has been named after an island in the southern state of Karnataka. What is unique about this new warship? Will this vessel give the Indian Navy an upper hand? Our next report getting you all the details.
Anjadeep is India's latest anti-submarine warship. The vessel is the third in a series of 8 similar war vessels. Anjadeep was launched at the Larsen & Toubro port located in southern India. So what makes this warship one of a kind? Anjadeep is equipped with an anti-submarine combat suite. This means that it has a hull-mounted sonar system and also a low-frequency variable depth sonar. It features an atomic power management system, a battle damage control system and a fire control system. Let's look at what weapons the vessel carries. The warship's armaments include one RBU 6000 anti-submarine rocket launcher, 6 lightweight ASW torpedo missiles, and anti-submarine mines which are launched through mine-laying rails. So how did the new vessel get its name? The warship is named after the island of Anjadeep, an island off the Karwar port in the southern state of Karnataka. The name signifies the island's strategic maritime importance. Anjadeep belongs to the Arnala class of vessels. These are ships made by Garden Reach shipbuilders and engineers. The new class of anti-submarine vessels will replace the outgoing Abhay class. The predecessor had a limited role in coastal waters, but the Arnala class is specially designed for operations in coastal waters. Low-intensity maritime operations, mine-laying operations, and subsurface surveillance in littoral waters. This class of ship has achieved 80% indigenization. This highlights India's commitment to self-reliant shipbuilding. The Indian naval vessel market is witnessing steady growth. Experts say India will spend over $35 billion on buying vessels from 2023 to 2033. On the other hand, India's push for indigenous shipbuilding ensures that local players get their share. India also recently showcased a bunch of its new aircraft. The Aero India show displayed many of India's indigenous aircraft. The Defence Research and Development Organization released combat aircraft, missiles and strategic systems, parachute and drop systems, and airborne surveillance systems. The nation is reducing its reliance on imports and pushing for domestic innovation. Anjadeep showcases the capabilities of the domestic supply chain entities. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now shift our focus to China. It could enter a new category this year, a category for maximum wealthy people choosing to shift out of the country. Studies show that the nation will lose maximum millionaires this year. And this should not come as a surprise. In fact, China has always topped the list when it comes to the outflow of millionaires for the past decade. Last year, over 10,800 millionaires left the country. Why are the wealthy moving out of China? What threats do they face in the country? Let's tell you what we know so far. First things first, the numbers. In 2022, China stood as the third wealthiest country in the world. But what is surprising is that the growth of the wealthy population has been negligible since 2017. What could result in a further decline is that studies show that over 13,000 wealthy people plan to migrate. Experts say the answer lies in China's Common Prosperity Campaign. What is the campaign about? Just to put it simply, the campaign urges the rich to give away their money. It aims to target China's high level of income inequality. Xi Jinping has urged private firms and entrepreneurs to donate to charity. He calls it sharing the fruits of growth. And this initiative came while the government tried to bolster its post-COVID economy. Experts say the wealthy may be trying to escape regulatory scrutiny. And what's the only option for them? Simply relocating. The relaxation of the COVID-19 rules now opened up international travel. Chinese millionaires are taking advantage of that situation. And where exactly do the millionaires want to relocate? Studies show that the wealthy have chosen their top 3 spots: Australia, the UAE, and Singapore. Singapore has popped out to be the favorite for some of the Chinese elite. Experts say the Chinese like the well-developed wealth management sector, the close proximity to China, and its connections to Chinese culture. Another plus point is Singapore's neutral position with the US and China. And many businesses are based there to avoid American scrutiny over businesses with China. Reports say the number of offices in Singapore jumped from 400 to 700 in 2021. And now that the nation is witnessing an influx of the Chinese elite, reports say the attention is driving up the cost of living as many Chinese businessmen are settling down their families in Singapore. The private home prices have touched $1.2 million. Home monthly rents have also hit the roof with $2,600 per month. But China is not the only one losing its wealthy citizens. There is also India coming in second with an exodus of 6,500 millionaires. Britain standing on that list, losing 3,200 of the wealthy. And studies show the number is likely to double. It now seems clear that China's approach to stabilize the economy is not working. It is backfiring. At least it's not working for the wealthy citizens. Xi Jinping has said that high-income groups and enterprises should return more to the society. But what will motivate the wealthy to do that? Will millionaires choose giving away money in place of saving it? Whatever the case might be, studies already show that 5,200 millionaires will move to Australia this year. This will slowly make Australia the top nation to attract the wealthy. Let me now ask you about how you like to watch your news. Which platform do you prefer? Do you prefer to rely on a newspaper? Data suggesting more and more people are now turning to social media for news. In that case, I hope your answer is not WhatsApp forwards. Facebook and YouTube have always been in the race when it comes to consumption of news, but now they have a new competitor, and that's TikTok. Because youngsters are especially in awe of influencers. And what makes me say that? This digital news report released by Reuters Institute. YouGov surveyed more than 93,000 online news consumers, and the results are startling. For 43% of 18 to 24-year-olds across the world, social media is the main source of news. 43%. Only 7% shy of half of the world's youth. Back in 2015, the figure stood at just 18%. Facebook remains the most sought-after platform as 28% of the people browse it for news. YouTube comes second with 20% for WhatsApp. The figure is 16%. Meanwhile, 14% and 11% of the people prefer Instagram and Twitter. 6% go to Facebook Messenger and another 6% to TikTok. Snapchat comes in last with 2%. Even though Facebook tops the list, its popularity is steadily declining and it faces competition from TikTok. TikTok is the fastest growing social network in the survey and it's primarily used by youngsters for news. 20% of 18 to 24-year-olds, in fact, worldwide, get their news from TikTok. The figure has grown by 5% in just a year. Now, you might think they follow journalists or news outlets on TikTok, but let me tell you, that is not the case. TikTok users are more likely to get news from celebrities, influencers, or even ordinary creators. You heard that right. They would rather listen to an influencer than an experienced journalist. And by the way, usage is especially higher in some parts of the world. In Thailand and Peru, for example, 30% of the people use TikTok for news, 29% in Kenya, 24% in Malaysia, 22% in Indonesia, South Africa, 21% in the Philippines, and 20% in Colombia. This is how actively TikTok is being used for news consumption. But many don't know that it is playing a key role in spreading misinformation as well. This happened during elections in Kenya and Brazil. Back in January, when the Brazilian users searched for hashtag Bolsonaro, TikTok led them to videos praising rioters as patriots or freedom fighters. It also failed to censor public outcries of violence. Last year, in the lead-up to the US midterms, TikTok posed a serious threat for spreading fake news. Researchers wanted to test it, and so they deliberately uploaded misinformation on the social media platform. And guess what? TikTok approved 90% of advertisements featuring election misinformation. This included ads containing wrong election dates, false claims about voting requirements, and rhetoric dissuading people from voting. This is how dangerous TikTok is as compared to other social media platforms. TikTok does the worst job when it comes to filtering out fake news. It was essentially designed as a platform for entertainment, after all, but now it is gaining traction as a hub for news. That too at a breakneck rate among the youth. What does this mean? What does this lead to? But be it social media or traditional news platforms, people's inclination towards news is dropping in general. Only 48% of people worldwide take interest in news. In 2017, the figure stood at 63%, a drop of 15% in 6 years. And that is something to think about. In fact, 36% of people sometimes or often actively avoid the news. And why this reluctance, you wonder? Does it have anything to do with the quality of news, or is it because of the sheer intensity of content? Many say they cut back on news to protect their mental health. They find it too depressing. They selectively avoid stories such as the war in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis in the UK, hate crimes, murders, among other issues. And those who do actively watch the news are often left in a state of dilemma. 56% of the people worry about identifying what news is real and what is fake online. And who can blame them? Meta platforms have been spreading fake news for years now, from influencing elections to illegally selling data. They have been caught in all kinds of controversies. Do we really need another social media platform to do the same, especially a Chinese one? The most definitive rivalry in world cricket gets underway later this week, with England and Australia locking horns in the Ashes. But a new rivalry is emerging, and this relates to cricket equipment. The century-old cricket bat industry of the Kashmir Valley has become the biggest rival of the famous English willow cricket bat. The Cricket World Cup qualifier in Zimbabwe will feature players from 6 teams using Kashmir willow bats. Take a look.
Kashmir, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. A region famed for its apples, dry fruits, and also its unique craftsmanship. But that craftsmanship isn't limited just to jewelry and shawls. Kashmir's contribution to cricket is also well documented, and we aren't just talking about pace sensation Umran Malik. The passion for cricket in India is unrivaled, and every budding cricketer sets off on his or her journey with a bat fashioned in factories such as these. The Kashmir willow is now going international.
That too, for last 100 odd years, you were nowhere there in the international market. And now, this year, we are hopeful that after having our debut in the one-day internationals, we will get more orders in the Kashmir Valley. And once you are in the exports, it's actually the money is coming to your country. You are contributing to the economy of the state.
Later this week, the ICC Cricket World Cup qualifier gets underway in Zimbabwe. The top two teams qualify for the main tournament in India in October and November. Players representing 6 countries, including 1996 world champion Sri Lanka and two-time champions West Indies, will be using made in Kashmir bats.
After going to the international T20 World Cups, we proved to the world that we have a better alternative in the form of Kashmir willow, and we performed very well. If you will see that our bat was able to hit the biggest 6 of the ICC T20 World Cup last year.
GR8 Sports, a company in the Halmula Sangam area of Anantnag, has helped turn the fortunes of the cricket bat industry in the Kashmir Valley. The Oman cricket team used their bats during the first stage of the 2021 T20 World Cup in Muscat. Word spreads fast in international cricket, and last year 4 players from the United Arab Emirates used Kashmiri willows at the T20 World Cup in Australia.
Last year, after our bat was able to hit the biggest 6 of the T20 World Cup in Australia, many orders poured into Kashmir, and we were able to supply around 1.5 lakh bats last year. And that was only exports. We are right now producing 3 million bats in Kashmir annually.
Bats made from the English willow have dominated international cricket over the years. But they don't come cheap. That's where the Kashmir willow scores. At a fraction of the cost, it's more economical, and there isn't any data that suggests it is inferior in any way to its English cousin. A decade ago, around 300,000 bats were made in the Kashmir Valley. Those numbers are now upwards of 3 million per year. There are around 400 bat factories in the Kashmir Valley, and over 100,000 people are earning their livelihoods through this industry.
After the T20 World Cup, the cricket bats made in Kashmir will be making its debut in the International One-Day Cricket World Cup. Players from around 6 cricketing nations would be using made in Kashmir bats in the upcoming International One-Day World Cup. This has come as a new dawn for the Kashmir cricket bat industry, as it's become one of the biggest competitors for the English willow bats. With video journalist Firoz Idris Lone for WION World is One.
Let's now tell you about a serial killer who is on the loose in Australia. Authorities are calling this man a serial crocodile killer. Why? Because the man has severed the head and spine of a crocodile, and what is disturbing is that he was proud of the act and called himself an apex predator. Officials have launched an investigation into the matter. Who is this sadistic crocodile killer? Let me tell you what we know so far. This is what happened. David White, a crocodile tour operator in Queensland, discovered a saltwater crocodile with a severed head and spine. And while in shock, he received a call from an unknown number. White said that the caller claimed to be an apex predator, as he had killed a crocodile. Reports say that this, in fact, is not the murderer's first kill. He had killed another crocodile in the far north region of Queensland. The unknown murderer confessed about killing the other crocodile on the phone call. The earlier crocodile was found decomposing without a head. And while the authorities are busy examining the connection between the two killings, officials are concerned that the animals are deliberately being targeted. And why is this a major concern? You see, saltwater crocodiles have been heavily hunted for their valuable skin. The killings have posed a significant threat to the population. The crocodile's severe decline has prompted measures by the government, in fact. Reports say there are up to 30,000 crocodiles in Queensland. Although the Qatar Australia Party has urged for a cull of the species, and over $32,000 fine has been imposed if somebody causes harm to the crocodiles. So why would a person kill an innocent animal? Studies say serial killers have a history of animal abuse. The killers often start torturing or killing small animals from a young age. The National Sheriff's Association saying that such people tend to also inflict harm on a human, leading to domestic violence. In fact, studies show that instead of getting angry on a human being, such people harm animals to assert dominance and sort of establish their power. And this behavior reflects their desire to exert control. As of now, the investigations continue, and we will be tracking the latest. Meanwhile, our next story is about a comedian, a joke, and how Interpol could get roped in to help track down the comedian. Let me break it down for you. A comedian made a joke about the missing MH370 plane. Her joke has triggered a massive row. Malaysia is now seeking Interpol's help to track down the comedian. What is this all about? Where do things stand right now? Who is this comedian? What's the complete story? Watch our report to find out.
Malaysia is asking for Interpol's help. It wants to track down Jocelyn Chia. Who's she and what did she do?
Tomorrow we're going apple picking.
Jocelyn is a comedian. You heard that right. And she's being investigated under Malaysian law on incitement and offensive online content. Here's what happened. Jocelyn Chia made a joke about the long-standing rivalry between Malaysia and Singapore. This was during her performance at a New York club. Not just that, she's triggered a row with a joke about the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 went missing in 2014 after it vanished from air traffic radar somewhere over the Indian Ocean. There were 227 passengers and 12 crew on board. The main body of the aircraft was never found. There was a 4-year search in the Indian Ocean. All 239 people on board are presumed dead. Jocelyn Chia is a New York-based comedian. She grew up in Singapore. Her joke triggered an official protest from Malaysia. Singapore has also apologized. The Malaysian police chief has said they will seek Interpol's help to get Jocelyn Chia's full identity and latest location. On Friday, the United Malays National Organization, one of Malaysia's biggest political parties, lodged a protest at the US Embassy in Kuala Lumpur. Vanu Gopala Menon, Singapore's High Commissioner to Malaysia, has said in a statement that the Singapore government does not condone words or actions that cause harm or hurt to others, adding that Chia does not in any way reflect their views, and sincerely apologizing to all Malaysians for her hurtful remarks. According to reports, Jocelyn Chia has said that she stands by the joke and that the clip has been taken out of context. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
They say employees don't leave companies, they leave bad bosses and toxic work cultures. Do you agree with this? Have you ever dreaded going to work the next day because of how your manager treated you? And if yes, you are not alone. And it seems like this is no longer a secret. Companies are catching up, in fact, they are coming up with innovative solutions. A US-based virtual assistant platform, the founder of the firm has claimed that the firm replaced all the managers with coaches. Why did the company do that? How were these coaches different from regular bosses? Was it of any help? The trigger for this decision was a plummeting employee engagement, not just at the company, but in companies across the United States. In fact, according to an annual survey by Gallup, employee engagement dropped to a 7-year low in 2022. Only a third of the workers reported feeling engaged at work, while almost a fifth described themselves as actively disengaged. What does that even mean? It means employees did not have clarity about the expectations. They experienced a lack of opportunities to learn and grow. They felt out of touch with the purpose of the company. And most importantly, they did not feel valued at work. And what do employees do when they feel that way? Well, it doesn't take a genius to answer that. They quit. And even if they stay on, they are less likely to be productive. Quiet quitting is a known concept at this point. We've heard about it. It's when unmotivated employees do the bare minimum at work. An effective solution was required and is required. Employees do not need a manager shouting at them. What they need is a mentor. They want someone to guide them, to help them set goals, give them feedback, provide them with opportunities to grow. And this particular company, Time ETC, Time etc., claims to have done exactly that. It assigned a coach for every 6 employees. These coaches had one very clear job to do: help the employees be as productive as possible. So they offered close mentoring and feedback, encouraged the employees to identify how they worked best. They offered them training and support to develop professionally. Just like managers, coaches still acted as first port of call during challenges. But instead of directing from above, they focused on empowering the employee. The staff was also given a monthly allowance to spend on Udemy courses or books. Coaches recommended reading material. The employees' performance as per the company improved by up to 20%. Quitting rates declined. So did the frequency of sick leaves. The big switch had its own challenges. Coaching called for a different set of skills than traditional management. A non-manager-led environment also called for redefining and maintaining boundaries. But the firm says the upsides have far outweighed the downsides. And there is no going back to the previous hierarchy now. And it's not hard to understand why. Feeling trusted and supported at work motivates employees to engage more. They work better when they don't have toxic bosses breathing down their necks. If you got a choice, what would you choose? A coach who helps you figure out your strengths and works with you on your weaknesses? Or someone who simply assigns you tasks and expects you to meet your targets? Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
A teenaged cadet of the Japan Self-Defense Force has been arrested after a shooting incident that resulted in 2 casualties. The motive of the shooting is yet to be established. The incident took place during training at a military facility in central Japan. Coastal areas in India's western states of Gujarat and Maharashtra witness high tides crashing at shores, a day ahead of the expected landfall of very severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy. China's Foreign Minister Qin Gang tells U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken that Beijing-Washington ties are facing new difficulties and challenges. The two speak on the phone ahead of Blinken's visit to Beijing on Sunday. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan rebuffs the growing international pressure on Ankara to ratify Sweden's NATO membership bid before the Western Defense Alliance meets in July. Syrian media has reported fresh airstrikes over the nation's capital, Damascus. The strike has injured 1 soldier critically, causing material damage. At least 78 people have died after a boat carrying dozens of migrants capsized in southern Greece, while around 100 others were rescued in an operation in international waters. Firefighters and emergency health workers from Portugal joined teams sent in by France, US and Spain to combat raging wildfires in Canada. Nearly 500 foreign workers currently deployed against the blaze. 3 days of torrential downpour in eastern Cuba left 6 people dead and damaged infrastructure. Heavy rains hit bridges, roads and sanitation systems, as well as several hundred homes. President Miguel Diaz said flooding in some places reached levels not seen in 30 years. The floods came after months of severe drought in Cuba's east. Real Madrid have completed the signing of England midfielder Jude Bellingham. The 19-year-old joins the Spanish Giants on a 6-year deal following a $111 million move from German side Borussia Dortmund. Wimbledon has announced a record prize money of over $56 million for this year's championships. It is an increase of 11% from last year's pool. The winners of the men's and women's singles titles will get $3 million each.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. We are leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.